So, just so folks know, I'm not new to Sprocket changes, friends. I got my 404s here. I got my 3/8s. I've been playing around with this stuff, friends, for many, many years. So, it's going to depend on what you're running, what you're cutting, your chain. It's not just you're going to throw an 8-tooth on a 372. Actually, to be honest with you, 8-tooth hurts a 372 stock. 372, it hurts it. What bar are you running? Are you running a 20-inch bar? Well, you might notice something there, but we don't run 20-inch bars here, friends. 20-inch bars are not even a thing here. They're just not. So my suggestion to you, because I get these questions on the steady, is try it and then speak to it. But don't just go flapping your gums thinking that an 8-tooth sprocket is going to get you cutting wood faster, because it's actually not the truth. In some cases it may. But with the 372s that I ran for years, I always ended up staying at 7 until I got into the bigger saws. Especially with these new fueling systems. These new fueling systems, they actually like the 8-pin because it loads the saw faster. So if it's loading the saw faster, does that mean more chain speed? Or it's just harder to spin the chain? What does it mean? All right, friends, this might help you. This is an 8-tooth sprocket. I want to show you what actually happens. This will be the 8-tooth, the next one will be 7. Okay, we're going to swap this out very quick. And we're going to go to the 7-tooth right now. And I'll literally show you how quick this process takes. Especially with the old ratchet wrench from whoever your sources are. I deal with my buddy's Rip Saw and Walker Saw Shop. So this is how fast this goes. This is a hand file, full house chain, same one we were running down at Dad's, but I cleaned it up and it's back to running order. There's the bar and chain cover off. We literally, friends, back that bar off. You could even leave it on the freaking machine if you wanted to, but it'll get in your way. Just drop it right there. Drop the chain, lay it down, grab your little thing. You got to make sure you don't lose your keeper now. This is the part that guys can screw up on and they lose their keeper. And it's like, oh no, what do I do now? There it is, right in my hand. Boom, goes the 8. There it is. So, friends, there we go. The sprocket is on. You need to listen to the power saw, friends. Listen to the saw. I talked to everybody about this the other day. You put your stuff on how you put your stuff on. I do it like I do it. and I've been doing it for a long, long time. So everybody has their own little system. So you do whatever works for you and master that. I throw this on the tip. I'm kind of in a weird spot here right now because I got my power head leaning in all different directions, but I just get her on the bar. I got more room with a 7-tooth to play, you see. There we go. There it is. She's on. Let's put this should end up, the adjuster should end up in the same spot, which, yes, it did. And away we go. This is how fast this happens, friends. If you want to learn about this stuff and speak to it like you know about it, not about what you heard from some guy on the internet like me. I've always said forever and ever, have your own experience. I've said it for years. See, this is loose now. Why do you think it's loose? Because the sprocket's smaller. So let's go. Let's quit the rambles and get going. So listen to the saw. Let's see what the saw sounds like cutting the exact wood that I cut. That's how fast that took. Let's take our glasses off for this one, friends. So the reason I done this, friends, for folks is the internet's a big place. And the bigger sprockets, in my personal opinion, friends, they're good for short bars. They are. They're good for short bars and racing application. You know, the 70cc class saws, if you want to, so that's why I've never really run them. I ran an 8-tooth on a 125. And I've talked to the Claw about this a few times over the years. And that's my old fallen partner. He, excuse me, he would run an 8-tooth, you know, on a 24-inch bar. That would be the only time, like on a 390 or a 72 with a short bar. The reason he'd have that short bar on there, I wouldn't know why. So I'm just saying, I didn't really notice the gains here. People said, Buckin, how come you don't four-stroke that big saw, that big 592? Someone, I forget who it was. It might even have been Fowler. Oh, Jacob Fowler there. He said, Buckin, why aren't you four-stroking that? Why isn't it making that bark with the 7-tooth sprocket? How come? Well, friends, that's operator, and that's the finger, you know, the trigger finger, and a sharp chain. There's really no other way to look at it. But what I would be interested in, and unfortunately, I don't need to do that now because my 500i doesn't do that anymore. My old one did. But any of you fellers out there with a 500i, now again, remember, shorter bars are where you'll notice the benefit here, not on the longer bars. You just won't. I actually, if you really look closely at this video and you listen to the RPM of the saw with the 8-pin on, it dives a bit. It does, friends. It goes, whereas the 7-tooth just maintains. So don't get all cranked up on this unless you're in the right application is all I'm saying, basically. And do whatever you want so you can speak to it. I'm a big believer of have your own experience. Don't listen to me, actually. Have your own experience and then you can speak. How would one live like that? I heard from this guy that he said this. Oh my gosh, I would have to take the mirrors down in my home if I lived my life like that. Have your own experience and then you can say, this is what I experienced. And it was actually a little different than from what that fella experienced. So that's all I'm saying. I do put time into these because my channel's heavy on power saws and stuff like this. So if you run short bars, you'll probably notice the gains. But a long bar guy, not until you get up into the 100cc realm, 90s, hot rod 90 to 100 and something cc's, will you notice a difference in the 8-tooth, is my personal opinion. But regardless of all that stuff, get out and at least do something with your life because it's yours to do whatever you want with it. And when I was 27, I said, you know what? I'm no longer going to do a job that I dislike. I'm not going to do it. I'm happy on a saw. And why? You ask why? Because it's my life. That's why. Plain and simple. That's the only reason I need. That's it. Good enough. And here I am at 56-year-old, still hanging off a freaking power saw. God willing. So don't squander this gift we all have. Work hard, be honest, and be kind. That fly's buzzing around. I better get out of here. Thanks for watching.